have an argument or an issue, she'll come to me to want to talk to it, like most people want to do with their friends.
I've been summoned. A boundary conversation. Count me in. Let's go ahead and chat about this. I feel we have to be so careful in letting our friends come to us for complaining purposes over and over again. Because when we let this happen, we unconsciously create a power dynamic that puts you, the person receiving the complaint, as the therapist friend or the counselor, and then the person who's complaining to you as the victim, the person who everything happens to them. So they constantly come to you for complaining purposes. And then if you're also the friend who is always seen as a strong person, the fixer, the person who knows what to do, you will usually get emotionally invested in this because you're so action oriented. So someone complaining about the same situation over and over again will drain you and mess up with your mental health. And this is a lesson I had to learn as that therapist and counselor friend. Yeah, I know a lot of people love to say, oh my God, this toxic person just comes and dumps on me and they just keep talking about the same situation and I'm drained and yada, yada, yada. And we love to complain about how other people are toxic, but we're not, of course, right? We're like the best person. But have to break it to you, we are also toxic too because we're letting this dynamic play out. I know it was a very hard pill to swallow when I noticed that I was playing into these dynamics. I used to be the type of person that had many relationships where people kind of feel safe with. Like I was always seek for my wisdom or guidance or just for a listening ear. And I always proud myself for being, that type of person that I'm okay creating a safe place for someone to express their emotions. I'm a very emotional person, so I connect very easily when someone is having a hard time. And after some of my friends finish complaining to me, they will shower me with compliments, which I love. I mean, I felt so useful, so productive, almost like in a high. I'm like, oh my God, they love me so much because I provide so much guidance and wisdom to them. And it was so normalized for me, because I was socialized to feel that me being the strong person and me creating space for others and putting my needs on the side was what made me special and unique, and that's why people loved me. It wasn't until 2017 that I actually started noticing patterns in my relationships. And I call 2017 one of the awakening years for me, just because that was a year that I got a lot of clarity and I got exposed to so many things that made me see the world a little bit different, and understanding that my needs were important and that I needed to stop putting my needs on the side. And that situation was when I got the chance to deploy to Hurricane Maria, because I was working in a disaster agency at that time. And for anyone who knows me, that have been following this page, I'm Boricua, Puerto Riqueña. I used to live in Puerto Rico for many years before moving to the mainland, and my immediate family and friends do still live there. So Hurricane Maria was really tough, especially me as a diasporican. So when I went there, even though I was working for an agency, because the island was in dire conditions, there was a lot of things that happened, a lot of trauma around it, right? Not to say that in comparison to what happened to the people on the island, it's not the same. I don't want to compare. But it was kind of traumatic when I worked over there. So I had friends and colleagues that slept in cars. I had people that were just like sleeping in catres, like in the convention center. We saw and heard about people that had heart attacks on the field when they were working. There was a lot of pressure and a lot of long hours. We were working 16 to 18 hours nonstop, 7 days a week. So there was just a lot of things that happened. Plus, obviously, I got an opportunity. I see it as a blessing because I got to see my family, help them for 2 or 3 days. But at the same time, I also lost my grandfather during that time, during Hurricane Maria. And that was another traumatic event, just because I had to help with funeral arrangements, and I got to speak one-on-one with different funeral homes, and they expressed to me all the people they had to buried in their homes because they couldn't get to the funeral. So it was just a lot of stories that I heard, and it was just very traumatic. So obviously when I finished my deployment in Puerto Rico, when I came back here to Maryland, I was like in a state of shock. I was proud that I had served, but I was in a state of shock and I needed support from the people around me, to the point that I got very, very sick. I started experiencing neurological symptoms and doctors didn't know what was happening to me. So it took me like 7 or 8 months to feel like a little bit better. There was some PTSD going on too. And when I came back, a lot of the relationships I had around me weren't supportive because they're so used to seeing me as a strong person and the person who was providing guidance to them, that when it was their turn, because a lot of these people didn't know how to deal with someone who was going through a tough time and they were used to seeing me resolve things, they weren't at all helpful. I didn't feel compassion from them. So it was almost very clear to me that I had established dynamics unintentionally that served them instead of both ways. There was not a lot of reciprocity there. And that's when I noticed what I had created. And that's when I started establishing boundaries and kind of looking for the things that, also benefited me. And one of the things I started establishing at that time was making sure that when people complained to me, because I will get so and so drained, I didn't have the energy that I used to have before. After the third complaint, if it was like the third time they were complaining about the same thing over and over again, I will ask them about a resolution and what they were doing to fix the problem. Some of them took the hit and they actually converted into the complaining section, more to the person who was action oriented. There were people that felt that I wasn't giving them the space that I used to give them, because the majority of these people were stuck in a victimhood loop. And I started noticing that even more and more and more. And as then 2018, something else happened to me that I noticed. 2019 was another year. And of course, then 2020, the pandemic, and then other crises that I also served that also helped me in a type of awakening. And while I started establishing more boundaries and being more conscious and intentional on the type of relationships I had around me, I also noticed that I didn't give myself space to be fully myself. And that's when I started creating and taking hobbies. And that's when I created my business. And that's when some other successes happened to me. So when I started establishing boundaries and putting my needs beside the other people, I grew so much, but I also lost a lot of people. So it's a give or take, but I wanted to do this video because I know a lot of people are going through this process. Also, I have been studying astrology for the last 6 years, so I do use astrology for a lot of things that I do. And since we have the nodes, and the North Node, we have it on Aries and South Node on Libra, there's a lot of the relationship and boundaries conversations that are happening right now. So we're almost like shifting and trying to align the people who are more similar to our values. And I've talked about this in other videos before. And that's why I felt called to make this video, to kind of share this experience with you. So obviously there are people that are going through a really tough time, but we also have a lot of people that they're not well mentally right now. And there's a lot of people really stuck in negativity and victimhood. And I used to be the type of person who was like that. Things are happening to me, why this? Until I discovered that I also have a say and I'm not as powerless as I think I am. And I think we need to remind ourselves that sometimes, even though you have to make hard decisions and you have to take conflict head on, you can encounter the power within and establish that boundary that you need. So I ask you to be more intentional with your relationships and make sure that when you provide space for others, you're putting your needs beside it too, because reciprocity is the key for a healthy relationship. So now tell me in the comments if you had a similar experience.